Today we're going to install and operate a SmarterSpa. It is actually a patent pending chlorine generator for spas. You simply add salt to your spa, and the SmarterSpa uses titanium plates to break down the water and whatever's in the water. In this case it's going to be salt that's in between the titanium plates, using the electrolysis process with a very safe and low 5.5 DC volts. That's like maybe 4 of the 1.5 volt batteries. So the voltage is very low, and SmarterSpa, however, is unique in that it detects the chlorine level and turns on when it needs to. It's the only chlorine generator, for pools or spas in the world with built-in chlorine detection technology. The way that these things typically work is it's a timed cycle. Part of the time it's going to be on, part of the time it's going to be off, and that cycle is typically the same. So if they operate on a 10-hour cycle, let's say, maybe 6 hours they'll be on, then 4 hours they're going to be off, and then once that 10 hours has been reached, it's just going to repeat. So the trick there is whether or not more chlorine is needed, they're going to turn on because they don't measure the chlorine. SmarterSpa is different. It doesn't have a cycle. It has power levels, so on power level 5 it'll be on for 4 hours. Then when it turns off, it's going to be off for an unknown amount of time. It'll be off until the chlorine drops, as it measures the chlorine and turns on when the chlorine gets low enough. So here we have our SmarterSpa that comes in the box. Let's just open it up, and what we have is some test kits. This one measures salt. This one measures chlorine and pH and alkalinity. And then we actually have our SmarterSpa control box, which is kind of wrapped up with the electrode. And then on the power supply we have a little plastic baggie that has some screws and some clips for connecting the wires. And we have our instruction manual. We've also purchased some salt, so we actually make the salt, it's Himalayan salt. You'll see the pink, then white. The white salt is regular pool salt. And we have the only real tool you need to install, a Phillips screwdriver. Alright, so we've now opened everything up. We have our power supply. So this has a 110 style plug. However, the power supply is an outdoor rated power supply, and it can accept anywhere from 100 to 240 VAC. However, it does have a 110 style plug. So if you're plugging it into 220, let's say, you just have to be wary that the plug is a 110 style. The plug itself isn't waterproof, so we have to keep it in a waterproof a rain cover so that water will not touch the pins. We have our control box, so the blue cable goes to the electrode into the water, and then the black cord goes to the power supply. And the power supply also has a little connector here that you can unscrew, and it comes apart, and it's keyed with a rectangular pin and a round pin, so you cannot put it in the wrong way. And then the electrode actually comes apart. So we have the titanium plates, we have the chlorine detection, and then we call this the cell body. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add salt. There's already salt in this spa, but basically it's 1.5 pounds of salt per 100 gallons of water. So there's 7 pounds in here. It's a 400-gallon spa, so we would want 6 pounds. So you don't want to put in too much, because then it may go into overcurrent, and it'll shut down. So you could start off by putting in half or a little bit more. The SmarterSpa will actually tell you if the salt is too low, and then you can add more later. And you just dump it in. Simple as that. Then we're going to determine where to mount the control box. So we need to have a 110 style outlet near enough for the 10-foot cord to reach, and then we want to install this where it's out of direct sunlight and minimize exposure to rain. And even though it's waterproof, it's always a good idea to protect equipment. So this side here faces east, so in the morning the sun's going to hit that side. The side over there is north, so that would pretty much have very little exposure to the sun. That'll help the box to remain cooler, and that'll probably also minimize exposure to rain. So we will install it there. Okay, we've installed the 2 screws. If you measure, well, you have 2 choices here. You have the middle holes are a little bit, have a larger round, a larger center, so you can actually put the screws in and then just slide this on top, then tighten the screws. If you need to remove it later, that's really convenient. You can also more permanently attach it using the top two, or the top or the bottom two holes. So if we measure here, it's 5 3/8 inches. So we put the screws in 5 3/8 inches, and we put it down about 2 1/4 inches from the top edge of the spa. Screw them in, slide it down, and then we can actually just go ahead and tighten these. There. Control box installed. Okay, now you'll notice we have these two wires here. This wire goes to the electrode, which will basically hang over the side of the spa into the water. This cord here goes to the power supply. So depending upon where your power supply is, you have a couple options. You can just safely route this underneath steps or whatnot to where the outlet is. You can also drill a hole here and then route the cable through the hole, and we have watertight cable grips that you could actually install here, and then the cable would route inside the spa where you may have an outlet, or you can then also even just wire it into the typically the 220 volts in the spa pack, and that way this cord here will not be exposed. It'll be safe inside the spa equipment area. Likewise with the cell cable, you could also drill a hole here, route this through that hole into the spa equipment, and then bring it out somewhere else where it's more convenient. Some people also, they drill a similar hole in the filter area of the spa shell above the water line, install the same watertight cable grip which we have available, and then they just route the cord through the hole here into the spa, then route it over to the filter area through that hole. And basically you can remove the control box as we've already installed it. There's 4 screws in the back, so the lid comes off. Then these 2 cords are attached just with the little screw terminals. You can remove them from the screw terminals to remove the cable from here, and then route it from the other direction. The cell electrode is much bigger, of course, than the hole here, so you have to route it using this end, not the other end. Okay, here we've installed a 110 outlet. It has 4 plugs in it. It has a waterproof rain cover. We've also even cut the bottom of it out here so it can handle a bigger power supply, as we have different power supplies. So, and if you don't have one of these close to the spa, we highly recommend that you get a licensed electrician to install it. You have to make sure that it has a GFI. The GFI for this is actually installed down with the main circuit breaker for the spa. Then you just simply plug it in, and you can even clamp it down, and make sure that the cord is routed away from where lawnmowers or people can trip, and it's just kind of hidden away. All right, so I'm holding the control box here. You'll notice the light is red. We just plug in the power supply. The electrode is not yet in the water, so it's displaying low salt, which is the red LED. And when it's out of the water, there's of course no salt. So as I put this in the water, we'll notice that the LED color will change. So now it's indicating the salt is normal, and if I put it in all the way, it's indicating the salt is high. We have a lot of salt in the spa. There's no problem at all in having salt on the high side. It'll just make more chlorine. If the salt is too high though, then the green light and the red light would be on at the same time, and it'll shut down. That's to protect the power supply. If both are on at the same time, the current to the electrode is more than 2.5 amps, and the power supply is a 3 amp power supply, so it's to protect the power supply and the electronics. Okay, now let's just go through the operation. Right now it's making chlorine. The light is green. We have an up arrow, a down arrow, and a boost button. Since it's making chlorine right now, let's go over what the buttons do. So if I press the down arrow, it's going to display the power level by flashing the white LED, and you just count the flashes. And this is the same for the ChlorMaker. The number of the flashes is the power level, and it's from 1 to 10. For the SmarterSpa, power level 1 is half an hour. Power level 2 is 1 hour. Power level 3 is 2 hours. Power level 4 and 5, and it's just basically 1, minus the power of the flash is the number of hours it would be on. So if it flashes 10 times, it'll be on for 9 hours. Then with the SmarterSpa, it'll remain off until the chlorine drops low enough for it to restart. So if I press the down arrow, we'll count the flashes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, power level 7. And then you'll notice also these LEDs are flashing over here. So the down arrow and the up arrow have alternate functions. After it displays the power level, these lights are going to flash, indicating some other information about the operation. So you basically are going to count the flashes. So the green flashes is times 100, the blue flashes is times 10, and the red flash is times 1. So it just flashed, I think it was 1 green, maybe it was 4 blue, and a couple reds. So that'd be 100, and if it was 300, 130, 140. And that is an indication of the salt level. When it's making chlorine, the lights will flash, if you press the down arrow, the salt level. If it gets to 160, then the salt is too high, and the red and green light would be on at the same time. So let's do that again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, 141. So the salt level is 141. And why that's important, if it's not making enough chlorine, you have it on a high power level, if that number was lower, you could then think, well, I could add some more salt because it's quite a ways away from 160. So that's kind of handy to know that. Okay, so then we have the boost button. So right now it's making chlorine. When the lights are on solid, it's making chlorine. If I press boost, you'll notice these top two will flash. And that lets you know you just press the boost button, and if it was currently making chlorine, pressing the boost button will turn it off. If it's not making chlorine, pressing the boost button will turn it on. So we've now turned it off. Let's go ahead and just take it out of the spa. Put it back in. Okay, so now when I press the down arrow, it's going to display the power level like it did when it was making chlorine, but it's also going to display the chlorine measurement. So, and it's not a measurement of actual chlorine, it's just a measurement that indicates if there is chlorine. So let's press the down arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically it's 84. So the measurement of chlorine was 84. That number will, when it's off, that number will continue to drop. When that number gets to 15, it'll then start a chlorine production cycle. If you press the up arrow, it'll display the power level, but then it's going to display the chlorine detection threshold. 1, 2, so that was 20. So that's adjustable from 10 to 30. So by it being 20, that means when the chlorine measurement drops to 20, it'll start a chlorine production cycle. It's not making chlorine. We'll notice the green LED is going to flash. It flashes every 10 seconds, and we call this standby mode. So they're just flash. So this is standby mode is where it's on, but it's not making chlorine. It's just kind of waiting until it needs to turn on again. That's basically it. Okay, so maintenance. Periodically, it's going to need cleaning. So let's just go ahead and put this back on the side. It can be on or off. It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and take this out. So periodically, the electrode may get some calcium buildup, even though the SmarterSpa has self-cleaning, which means it reverses the polarity on the titanium plates. Every time it turns on, it'll switch to polarity. If the calcium is really high in your spa, that may not be enough, and you may have to periodically soak it in a mild acid. A lot of people use white vinegar. Just soak it for 15 minutes, half an hour, and then after that you can rinse it off, and that should do it. Make sure that there's no white calcium buildup. And then periodically you may need to remove the cell body, and then you can see here's the chlorine detection sensors right here, and we have a gold wire and a copper wire. You can just get a little like a toothbrush, and then just gradually and gently clean them off. Simple as that. Put it back together. Hand tight is good enough. And then just stick it back in the water. We recommend the deepest part of the spa. That way when it's making bubbles, they will travel, they have the furthest to travel to actually and be in contact with the water, so you'll get the highest chlorine absorption into the water. When you're all finished installing your SmarterSpa, very important to do product registration. You can go to the website controlomatic.com, and then at the bottom of the page there should be a link, or go to the support tab. Then there'll be a link where you can register it online. You may or may not have a registration part on the back of your product manual, But we're now also including the same type of a little sheet you can fill out the serial number, the SmarterSpa serial number, and then your information, and go ahead and mail it to us. The serial number will be written on the side of the box it came in, and the serial number is also written on the top of the control box itself. And there you can see the SmarterSpa making lots of bubbles, making chlorine. It's going to be a happy spa. If the chlorine is 0 in your spa, with any chlorine generator, they make chlorine slowly. It may take it some time to actually break away from 0. The SmarterSpa, if you saw our previous video, it actually makes 33 grams per day, so it's one of the highest, actually it is the highest spa chlorine generator out there. There's a couple others, but they make anywhere from 10 to 22 grams per day. The SmarterSpa comes, and the Chlormaker come in at 33. So it will most likely not have a problem breaking away from 0. And you can see that's a lot of bubbles coming out. And from that you can also see that you would like to have this at the bottom of the spa, so those bubbles will be in contact with the water further as they rise to the top. And that concludes the installation. Thank you.